Taehyung of BTS heads to the United States, a global collaboration, or a secret invitation from Jimmy Fallon. The question spread faster than the news itself. Just days after being officially discharged from his mandatory military service, Taehyung quietly left South Korea. There was no press conference, no formal announcement from HYBE, no grand farewell that usually follows the movement of a global superstar. No teaser, no schedule, just a single moment at Incheon International Airport that instantly sent shockwaves through the global K-pop community. This was not a concert tour, not a vacation, and certainly not a coincidence. What could possibly prompt BTS's V, one of the most influential cultural figures of his generation, to board a flight to the United States so suddenly, so silently, and so close to his return to civilian life? Speculation ignited even before the plane lifted off the runway. On the morning of June 15, 2025, Korean time, Taehyung was spotted entering the international departure terminal at Incheon. Dressed in a dark hoodie, a cap pulled low, and a face mask that barely concealed his familiar gaze, he moved calmly through the terminal. But calm is a luxury that never follows him. Within minutes, the quiet morning atmosphere of the airport transformed into a global spotlight. Phones were raised, whispers spread, photos surfaced online. Taehyung was traveling, and no one knew why. Industry insiders quickly noted something unusual. This U.S. departure was not listed on HYBE label's official schedule. There were no public statements, no accompanying documentary cameras, none of the usual layers of promotion and transparency that often surround high-profile BTS-related movements. The timing was tight, almost abrupt, and that alone was enough to raise eyebrows across the entertainment industry. When Taehyung moves, the world watches, and when he moves without explanation, the world starts asking questions. International fans, especially ARMY, wasted no time connecting the dots. Online communities across Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and fan forums began dissecting every detail: flight routes, clothing choices, the number of staff seen accompanying him, even the timing of U.S. television production schedules. One theory quickly rose above the rest: Jimmy Fallon. For longtime fans, the connection made immediate sense. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon has long been considered a second home for BTS during their international promotions. Over the years, the show has hosted some of BTS's most iconic U.S. appearances, blending humor, sincerity, and unforgettable performances that resonated far beyond American television. Taehyung's relationship with Fallon, in particular, has always stood out. During BTS's previous promotions, Taehyung's effortless charm, quick wit, and calm confidence often created moments that went viral overnight. Fallon, known for his genuine curiosity and relaxed interview style, seemed to share a unique on-screen chemistry with him. Their interactions never felt scripted. They felt human. Now, nearly 2 years removed from public activities due to military service, Taehyung's sudden reappearance on international soil feels anything but random. Some entertainment analysts suggest that if Taehyung were indeed preparing for a Tonight Show appearance, the secrecy might be intentional. In today's digital landscape, surprise is currency. A sudden reveal, especially involving someone of Taehyung's global influence, could dominate headlines, trend across platforms, and instantly recapture global attention. And the timing is curious. According to unofficial production discussions circulating within U.S. entertainment circles, there are gaps in the Tonight Show's upcoming recording schedule that align almost perfectly with Taehyung's arrival window. Empty slots rarely stay empty for long, and they are often reserved for guests capable of generating massive buzz. Guests exactly like him. But Jimmy Fallon is only one piece of the puzzle. Another theory suggests that Taehyung's trip has little to do with television at all. Instead, some believe this journey is about music, global music. For years, Taehyung has been quietly recognized within the industry as an artist with a distinct musical identity, one that transcends traditional K-pop boundaries. His deep baritone, artistic sensibility, and love for jazz, soul, and alternative pop have often sparked discussions about potential international collaborations. Rumors have resurfaced about meetings with American producers, songwriters, and musicians known for shaping global hits. Names are being whispered. Studios in Los Angeles and New York are being mentioned. Some fans believe this could be the foundation of Taehyung's next artistic chapter, one that positions him not just as a BTS member, but as a standalone global artist with a clearly defined musical vision. What fuels the mystery even further is HYBE's silence. No confirmation, no denial, no clarification. In the K-pop industry, silence is rarely accidental, and when an agency chooses not to speak, it often means something is being carefully prepared behind the scenes. Fans know this pattern well. The less information released, the bigger the reveal tends to be. Adding to the intrigue is the noticeably minimal entourage accompanying Taehyung. Only a small number of core staff were seen, no large security detail, no visible filming crew, no promotional setup. For some, this suggests privacy. For others, it suggests precision. If this is just a vacation, why does it feel like a state-level operation? One viral post questioned, amassing tens of thousands of shares within hours. Of course, there is always the possibility that Taehyung simply wants time away. After completing military service, rest is not only reasonable, it is deserved. But skeptics are quick to point out that the United States is hardly the ideal place for anonymity, especially for someone whose presence alone commands headlines. America is opportunity. America is exposure. America is pressure. And that is exactly why some believe this moment is strategic. In a global music industry that moves faster than ever, timing is everything. Re-establishing connections, testing international waters, and reminding the world of one's presence can define the next phase of an artist's career. Taehyung understands this better than most. His influence is not limited to charts or awards. It extends into fashion, art, culture, and global media narratives. So the question remains, will Taehyung suddenly appear on NBC screens this week? Has Jimmy Fallon prepared a special welcome? Or is this trip merely the first step in a much larger plan, one that has nothing to do with late-night television and everything to do with global creative expansion? One thing is undeniable. Taehyung never moves without meaning. And when he does, the world leans in a little closer, holding its breath. As anticipation builds, fans and media alike can only wait. A surprise feels inevitable. And when it arrives, it may redefine how the world sees Taehyung, not just as a member of BTS, but as an artist stepping into a new era, ready to write the next chapter of his global story. As Taehyung's flight crossed the Pacific, the story surrounding his journey grew far beyond a simple airport sighting. What began as a handful of photos quickly transformed into a full-scale media phenomenon. Within hours, international news outlets, K-pop journalists, and pop culture commentators began framing the same question in different ways, each version adding a new layer of intrigue. Why now? Why the United States? And why the silence? Social media became the primary battleground of speculation. On Twitter, trending keywords connected Taehyung's name with phrases like global comeback, secret project, and Jimmy Fallon surprise. On TikTok, short clips analyzing his airport appearance reached millions of views overnight. Every detail was dissected. The color of his hoodie, the absence of visible branding, the fact that he carried no obvious instruments or luggage that suggested leisure travel. In the K-pop ecosystem, nothing is ever considered accidental. What intensified the conversation was the unusual behavior of traditional media. Major outlets reported the departure, but their language was cautious. No confirmations, no exclusive sources, just carefully worded headlines filled with question marks. This restraint only made fans more suspicious. When information is limited, imagination fills the gap. And imagination, when combined with Taehyung's global influence, spreads fast. Some observers noted that this moment feels different from past BTS-related movements. There was no immediate effort to control the narrative, no quick clarification from the agency, no attempt to downplay the significance of the trip. Instead, there was an intentional emptiness, a silence that allowed speculation to breathe and grow. This led many to believe that the mystery itself might be part of the strategy. In modern entertainment, especially in the West, anticipation is a powerful promotional tool. Surprise appearances generate stronger reactions than pre-announced schedules. A sudden reveal on a major platform like American late-night television could dominate headlines far more effectively than a planned press release. If Taehyung were to appear unannounced, the impact would be immediate and global. But others argue that television is too small a frame for what might be happening. Behind the scenes, industry insiders have quietly suggested that Taehyung's U.S. visit may be centered around music production rather than media exposure. Los Angeles, in particular, has long been a hub for high-level collaborations that are never meant to be public until the final product is ready. Meetings happen in private studios, away from cameras, where ideas are exchanged long before contracts or announcements are made. Taehyung's artistic evolution supports this theory. Over the years, he has consistently shown a desire to explore sounds beyond mainstream pop. His solo work has leaned into mood, texture, and emotional depth. Jazz influences, alternative arrangements, visual storytelling. These are elements that align naturally with certain circles in the American music industry, where genre boundaries are often blurred. If this trip is about collaboration, it may not be about one song or one artist. It could be about building relationships that define his sound for years to come. Fans have also pointed out the timing in relation to the broader K-pop landscape. With multiple groups preparing comebacks and solo debuts, the industry is entering one of its most competitive periods. For an artist like Taehyung, re-establishing his presence on the global stage now could shift attention, reset narratives, and remind both fans and critics of his unique position in the industry. Yet despite the mounting theories, there is one undeniable absence. There is still no proof. No leaked photos from U.S. studios. No confirmed sightings beyond the airport. No statements from American partners. No acknowledgement from Jimmy Fallon himself. This lack of concrete evidence has created a divide within the fan community. Some embrace the excitement, treating every rumor as a sign of something monumental. Others urge caution, reminding everyone how easily narratives can spiral out of control in the age of instant content. A single 8-second video from Incheon was enough to trigger hundreds of interpretations. Within 24 hours, those interpretations began to feel like facts. Repeated enough times, assumptions gain weight. And once they gain weight, they shape public expectation. This is where pressure begins to form. When an artist of Taehyung's stature moves without explanation, expectations rise rapidly. Fans anticipate greatness. Media anticipates headlines. The industry anticipates impact. But expectation can be a double-edged sword. If the outcome does not match the imagined scale, disappointment can follow, even if the reality is meaningful in its own way. That is why some analysts believe this moment is less about where Taehyung is going, and more about how the story around him is being constructed. Is this narrative unfolding naturally? Or is it being guided, intentionally or not, by the collective desire for a dramatic comeback? The truth may lie somewhere in between. Taehyung has always moved at his own pace. He is known for resisting predictable paths, for choosing moments that feel personally significant rather than strategically obvious. That unpredictability is part of what makes his actions so compelling. It is also what makes them so difficult to interpret. As the days pass with no updates, the tension continues to build. Fans refresh feeds. Media waits for a signal. Every hour without news feels heavier than the last. Something is coming. Or perhaps nothing is coming, and that itself is the point. In an industry driven by constant noise, silence can be the loudest statement of all. And as Taehyung's journey in the United States continues behind closed doors, the world remains suspended between belief and doubt, excitement and restraint, certainty and speculation. The question is no longer just about why he went to America. It is about what we expect him to do once he arrives. As the days passed with no official updates, the narrative surrounding Taehyung's U.S. trip began to shift. What was once excitement slowly evolved into something more complex. Curiosity turned into analysis. Analysis turned into debate. And debate turned into a larger conversation about how stories are created, amplified, and believed in the modern entertainment landscape. The absence of information became the story itself. Major media outlets continued to report cautiously, often recycling the same limited facts. Taehyung had departed. The destination was the United States. The purpose remained unknown. Every article looked different yet said the same thing. Headlines asked questions instead of offering answers, and that pattern was not accidental. Questions invite clicks. Uncertainty keeps audiences engaged. Meanwhile, fan-driven platforms filled the vacuum. Long threads appeared overnight, breaking down hypothetical schedules minute by minute. Videos with dramatic background music claimed insider knowledge without sources. Anonymous accounts hinted at confirmed projects, only to disappear hours later. In this environment, repetition replaced verification. Once a theory gained momentum, it no longer needed proof to survive. This is how narratives harden. Taehyung's name, paired with words like global, exclusive, and secret, created a powerful emotional formula. Fans wanted meaning. Media wanted momentum. Algorithms wanted engagement. And each of these forces pushed the story forward, regardless of whether new information existed. At some point, the question stopped being what Taehyung was doing in America. It became what everyone needed him to be doing. In K-pop, silence is often interpreted as strategy. Years of tightly managed promotions have trained audiences to assume that nothing happens by accident. When agencies say nothing, fans assume something big is coming. That belief has been reinforced countless times in the past, and it now shapes expectations automatically. But this expectation comes with pressure. For an artist like Taehyung, whose every move carries symbolic weight, even a private decision can quickly turn into a public test. If he appears on a major show, it will be labeled a triumphant return. If he collaborates with an American artist, it will be framed as a global takeover. If neither happens, disappointment may follow, even if the original assumptions were never confirmed. This raises an uncomfortable question. At what point does anticipation become entitlement? Some commentators have begun to push back against the frenzy, reminding audiences that Taehyung is not obligated to perform, announce, or reveal anything simply because the world is watching. Military discharge marks the end of a demanding chapter, not the beginning of a promotional contract. Rest, reflection, and privacy are not signs of inactivity. They are human necessities. Yet in the current media climate, stillness is difficult to accept. Every celebrity movement is expected to produce content. Every silence is expected to hide a plan. Every appearance is expected to deliver impact. This cycle leaves little room for nuance and even less room for ambiguity. Interestingly, Taehyung has always existed slightly outside this cycle. Throughout his career, he has been known for moments that feel unscripted. He disappears from public view without explanation. He resurfaces with work that feels personal rather than reactive. He resists urgency, even when urgency surrounds him. This pattern suggests that whatever is happening now may not align with the expectations being projected onto him. And that may be intentional. Some industry observers believe that this moment represents a quiet recalibration, not a comeback designed to dominate headlines, but a period of repositioning, reconnecting with creative partners, exploring ideas without pressure, deciding what comes next before the world demands it. If that is the case, then the speculation itself becomes a kind of noise, one that Taehyung has learned to move through without responding. Still, the media machine does not stop. Every day without updates adds tension. Fans oscillate between excitement and frustration. Comment sections fill with arguments about credibility, who knows something, who is lying, who is clout chasing. In this chaos, the original facts fade further into the background. One flight, one destination, endless interpretations. This moment exposes something deeper about how modern fandom operates. Information is no longer consumed passively. It is constructed collectively. Meaning is negotiated in real time, shaped by emotion, loyalty, and the desire to feel close to the artist. But closeness is an illusion when it is built on assumption. As Taehyung remains out of sight, the story continues to grow without him. And that may be the most revealing part of all. The narrative does not depend on his actions. It depends on our reactions. Sooner or later, clarity will arrive. It always does. Whether through an appearance, an announcement, or a quiet return home, the truth will surface. And when it does, it may look very different from what the world imagined. Until then, the tension remains unresolved. Not because Taehyung is silent, but because we are still deciding what his silence means. As speculation reaches its peak, the conversation around Taehyung's presence in the United States begins to narrow. The endless possibilities slowly organize themselves into a few realistic outcomes, each carrying its own implications for his future as an artist and as a global figure. One possibility stands at the center of public imagination: a sudden appearance. Late-night television has always thrived on surprise, and no platform understands that better than The Tonight Show. If Taehyung were to walk onto that stage without prior announcement, the moment would instantly dominate global media. Clips would spread within minutes, headlines would follow within hours, and the narrative would shift from speculation to confirmation overnight. Such a moment would not need explanation. His presence alone would speak volumes. It would signal a return, not just from military service, but to the global conversation. It would be familiar, comfortable, and powerful, a reminder of the connection he has built with international audiences over the years. But familiarity may not be the goal. Another scenario feels quieter, yet potentially more significant. Behind closed doors, Taehyung could be spending his time in studios, not recording finished tracks but experimenting, listening, writing, searching. These early stages of creation rarely produce immediate results, but they often define the direction of an artist's next era. This kind of work does not come with cameras or announcements. It comes with long nights, unfinished ideas, and conversations that stay private until they are ready to become public. If this is the path Taehyung has chosen, then the lack of visibility is not a weakness. It is a necessity. There is also the possibility that this trip serves a dual purpose: meetings by day, reflection by night, a balance between reconnecting with the industry and reconnecting with himself. After years of relentless schedules and expectations, the freedom to move without explanation may be the most valuable outcome of all. What complicates every scenario is the scale of anticipation surrounding him. Taehyung is no longer evaluated solely by what he does, but by what his actions symbolize. A single appearance can be framed as a statement. A single collaboration can be interpreted as a strategic move. Even silence can be read as intention. This level of scrutiny transforms ordinary decisions into cultural events. And yet, Taehyung has always shown an ability to step outside these frameworks. He does not rush to satisfy curiosity. He does not respond to pressure with urgency. Instead, he allows time to pass, trusting that meaning will reveal itself when the moment is right. This approach frustrates some, reassures others, and ultimately reinforces his individuality. As the days continue, a subtle shift becomes noticeable. The tone of conversation begins to change. The excitement remains, but it is tempered by patience. Fans start to acknowledge the possibility that there may be no immediate reveal. Media outlets slow their coverage, waiting for confirmation instead of feeding speculation. This shift suggests something important. The narrative is maturing. Instead of demanding answers, more people are beginning to accept uncertainty as part of the process. They are recognizing that not every movement needs to result in instant content. That growth can happen off-camera. That preparation often looks like silence. If and when Taehyung chooses to speak, his message will land with greater weight precisely because it was not rushed. And when that moment arrives, whether on a stage, in a studio, or through a simple announcement, it will redefine the story retroactively. Everything that now feels confusing will suddenly make sense. The quiet will reveal its purpose. Until then, this moment exists in between expectation and reality, between speculation and truth, between what the world wants to see and what Taehyung chooses to show. Perhaps that is the most honest reflection of where he stands now as an artist, no longer chasing attention, no longer reacting to noise, but moving forward deliberately, aware of his influence, yet unwilling to be defined by it. The United States is not the destination. It is the setting. And whatever unfolds next will not simply answer questions about this trip. It will shape how Taehyung's next chapter is understood, not as a response to rumor, but as a statement made on his own terms. At some point, every story reaches a moment where speculation can no longer sustain itself. The noise fades, the theories slow down, and what remains is perspective. Taehyung's journey to the United States has now reached that stage, not because answers have suddenly appeared, but because the questions themselves have evolved. This is no longer just about a flight, a destination, or a possible television appearance. It is about timing. Taehyung returned to the public eye after military service at a moment when the global music industry is shifting. Audiences are more fragmented, trends move faster, attention is harder to hold, and yet authenticity has never been more valuable. Artists who last are no longer defined by constant visibility, but by intentional presence. In that context, Taehyung's silence begins to look less like avoidance and more like control. For years, he has existed at the center of one of the most powerful cultural forces in the world. Every expression, every movement, every absence has been magnified. Few artists understand better than him what it means to be watched. Fewer still have the discipline to step back when the world demands more. If this trip produces a public moment, it will feel earned. If it produces nothing visible, it will still have meaning. Because not all progress is meant to be consumed immediately. There is also a larger reality that cannot be ignored. BTS, as a name, carries expectations that extend far beyond individual members. Any move made by Taehyung is instantly interpreted through that lens. A solo appearance becomes a symbol. A collaboration becomes a message. A pause becomes a headline. But Taehyung has increasingly positioned himself in the space between collective legacy and individual identity. This trip to America, regardless of its outcome, reinforces that position. It signals autonomy, choice. The ability to move without explanation and trust that his work, when ready, will speak clearly enough on its own. The global response proves one thing beyond doubt. Interest has not faded. Relevance has not diminished. Curiosity has not weakened. If anything, the reaction to his quiet movement shows how deeply connected audiences remain to his presence. The world still listens, even when he does not speak. That is not something that can be manufactured. It is earned over time. As the final theories circulate and attention begins to shift elsewhere, one truth settles in. This was never about Jimmy Fallon alone. It was never only about collaboration rumors. And it was never just about a comeback narrative. It was about re-entry. Re-entering the global stage on his own terms. Re-entering creativity without urgency. Re-entering public life without surrendering control. Whether Taehyung's time in the United States results in a surprise appearance, a future release, or a quiet return to Korea, the meaning of this moment will only become clearer in hindsight. And that is often how the most important chapters are written. Not loudly, not immediately, but deliberately. In an industry addicted to instant gratification, Taehyung's approach feels almost radical. He allows space. He allows ambiguity. He allows the story to breathe. And in doing so, he reminds the world that artistry does not require constant proof of existence. Sometimes, presence is felt most strongly in absence. The world will eventually move on to the next headline, the next rumor, the next speculation. But when Taehyung chooses to step forward again, he will do so not as a response to noise, but as the author of his own narrative. And when that moment comes, this journey to the United States will no longer be remembered as a mystery. It will be remembered as the quiet beginning of something intentional, something controlled, something his. As the dust slowly settles, one realization becomes impossible to ignore. The story of Taehyung's journey to the United States was never truly about where he went, but about what his movement revealed. It exposed how modern fame operates, how expectation shapes perception, and how silence can be interpreted as intention in a world that fears stillness. This moment forced audiences to confront something uncomfortable. We are no longer satisfied with art alone. We demand context, explanation, and constant visibility. When an artist steps away from that rhythm, even briefly, the absence feels unsettling. Taehyung's quiet presence in America challenged that expectation. It disrupted the cycle of announcement, reaction, and validation that dominates global pop culture. And in doing so, it reminded us that mystery still has power. For Taehyung, mystery has never been an accident. Throughout his career, he has carefully balanced openness with distance. He shares emotion through music, not commentary. He expresses intention through timing, not press releases. This approach has often confused observers, but it has also protected his sense of authorship. This trip, stripped of confirmation and clarity, fits that pattern perfectly. In the absence of facts, people projected meaning. Some saw strategy, some saw secrecy, some saw ambition, others saw rest. Each interpretation said more about the observer than about Taehyung himself, and that is the nature of modern celebrity. Identity becomes a canvas onto which millions paint their own expectations. But beneath all interpretations, one constant remains. Taehyung is an artist who values process over performance. If this journey involved meetings that will never be disclosed, they mattered. If it involved creative exploration that produced nothing tangible yet, it still mattered. If it involved no professional agenda at all, that mattered too. Not every meaningful moment is meant to be documented. What makes this especially significant is the timing. This is a transitional era, not just for Taehyung, but for K-pop as a whole. The industry is expanding, fragmenting, and redefining itself in real time. Global success is no longer measured only by chart positions or television appearances. It is measured by longevity, influence, and the ability to remain relevant without exhausting one's identity. Taehyung's quiet movement signals an understanding of that shift. He does not need to announce his presence to prove it exists. The response to his absence already confirmed it. The conversations, the debates, the anticipation all demonstrate a level of cultural gravity that does not depend on constant output. This is the kind of influence that cannot be rushed. And perhaps that is the most important takeaway from this entire episode. Taehyung is no longer navigating the industry. He is navigating himself within it, choosing when to engage, choosing when to disappear, choosing when to speak and when to let silence do the work. That choice is rare, and it is powerful. As audiences, we are left with a decision of our own. We can continue to chase rumors, demand immediacy, and mistake speculation for truth. Or we can learn to sit with uncertainty, allowing stories to unfold at their own pace. Taehyung's journey invites that patience. Not because it guarantees a reward, but because it restores balance between artist and audience. It reminds us that creativity is not a transaction. It is a process, one that unfolds quietly long before it becomes visible. When the next chapter finally arrives, it will not feel sudden. It will feel inevitable. And when we look back, this moment will stand out not as confusion, but as preparation. A pause before intention. A silence before clarity. A movement before meaning. Taehyung did not owe the world an explanation. And yet, through his quiet actions, he offered something more valuable than answers. He offered perspective.